Big shout out to our sponsors. Listeners, don't miss out on these amazing deals. Get 10% off Psych Plus, the best e-pump on the market. 35% off Frey Skincare for skin that sweats. And 25% off Genki Wellness nutrition packages. All using the coupon code ZONE2SPEAK at checkout. Head to the podcast description for all the links and grab your exclusive discounts today. And now for the episode. Hi everyone, welcome to the Zone to Speak podcast. I'm your host, Juliana. Today I am thrilled to welcome Jess Cerra to the podcast. Jess is an accomplished cyclist, chef, and currently VP and innovator at Alete Nutrition. She also gives back to the community with the Last Best Ride, which is a gravel race that provides post-secondary education funding for young women in Whitefish, Montana, where Jess is from. Her journey from the world of professional cycling to the kitchen is inspiring, and her passion for both sports nutrition and performance is unmatched. I'm excited to hear all about her experiences on life after being a pro cyclist, creating delicious performance foods, and how she balances all. Jess, welcome to Zone to Speak.
Well, hello. That is quite the intro. I hope I can live up to all of that.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I missed this stuff because there's so much about you.
Yeah, I'm busy. I'm a busy lady.
You are. So you came from a community with less resources and had a great mentor that made a huge impact in your life, and now you are paying forward. Can you share with us more about the Barbara Mansfield Champion Scholar Award?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite topics, actually. As you mentioned, I'm from Whitefish, Montana. It's where I was born and raised and grew up, and I often attribute coming from such a small community as one of the reasons why I was able to kind of accelerate in every step of my life. One thing I learned at a very young age is that if you are willing to work super hard, there's always people that want to meet you there. And that is very special. And when you are sort of raised with that energy around you as you grow up into adulthood, I don't know how you could overlook that and not want to kind of come full circle with that when you get to that point in your life. My dog is entering the podcast.
I love it.
What are you doing over there?
She has an opinion she wants to share with us.
Yes. She's like, oh, I love the Last Best Ride when all these people come and give me treats. So anyway, in high school, our sophomore year of high school, our guidance counselor, Barbara Mansfield, who was an educator for 44 years and the guidance counselor at our school for 24, she came to one of my classes and she started thinking about college and the resources available. And it just had not occurred to me that college costs so much money, and it wasn't really like a topic. It wasn't like I was raised to go to an Ivy League school or to follow a lineage of like physicians or lawyers or something. So not that education wasn't important to my parents. And it's kind of funny to talk to them about it today. And they're like, we had no idea that you were so scared about not being able to afford college. And if you had talked to us about it, we would have helped. But as a young kid, you just, you're a sophomore in high school and you're not really thinking about those things. So Mrs. Mansfield was the catalyst to that. And I worked with her over the course of my junior and senior year, filling out scholarships, filling out the FAFSA. At the time, the Pell Grant was around. There was more federal aid for students who were financially qualified. But I paid for my entire undergrad at the University of Montana loan-free, debt-free. More than half of that came from local and regional scholarships.
That's incredible.
It was also at the dawn of the internet. So I had applied for a scholarship and I won a computer, and we had dial-up internet, and that was really exciting and cool. But my my applications, a family friend actually typed on a typewriter my applications for me because there were no digital applications. So I was like, turning in the applications that weren't handwritten. Anyway, that experience, it's not like, I don't really feel like I was ever like the type of kid that didn't internalize these sort of experiences and the help. Like, I really internalized it, and I gained a lot of empathy from the place that I came from. And so I carried that with me in my heart, honestly. Like, I say that honestly, for my entire life. And I knew that I wanted to be part of the other side of it at some point in time. So when COVID came around and my now husband, Sam, and I were spending time in Whitefish, and we decided to start this event, the big reason behind it, besides showcasing beautiful Whitefish and the surrounding area, was because it provided a way for us to have the scholarship, and to be able to start infusing that back into the community.
That's incredible. I study in the US, and I know how hard it is to navigate the educational system when you're talking about grants. So I'm sure having this mentor help you navigate and get you all these grants, it's incredible. What an incredible woman as well, because, also in the public system, teachers are overworked and putting a lot of hours, and they really love what they do. And it shows by, guiding you through this, and also your incredible job in now paying forward. It's not, I'm sure a lot of people want to do something, but it's overwhelming on how to start and to execute. So I really congratulate you on building this race and paying forward. Tell me a little bit more about the community building in Montana and having this race started in the middle of nowhere, which is a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah. Well, to start, just to elaborate a little bit more on the point you just made, a lot of our recipients come from family situations where they're actually working full time to help support their families, or they may have dealt with homelessness. Applying for college takes a huge amount of resources, and the guidance counselors that we work with at the 5 high schools in our region are exceptional. And they really help bring the students into the process. And that's a huge piece of it, and kind of as a segue to the local community, when we focused the Last Best Ride around the scholarship, I had never expected how everyone has adopted it. And the theme is it doesn't really matter what state you're in or what community you're in, but people are very passionate about education, and especially in this environment that we're living in now and the world that the US is facing, like what our future potentially looks like. Leaning into young people and investing in young people and equipping them with resources, that is something that everyone agrees on, right? And so the adoption of this scholarship, it just is like overwhelming year after year. And from the outside community of people coming across, from the US and even from other countries, I love hearing stories of like how it's personal to them, and maybe they came from a place like me, or maybe they didn't, but they do something similar, or there's, family involved. And so it can be very personal. From a local community standpoint, Whitefish is, it's close knit, and it's one of those communities that you think of, like the show Yellowstone is like the only example I can use, where it's changing so rapidly that like we can't even keep up with what that growth sort of means for us. So within that community, I think that people seek to these sort of like grounding experiences, and having this event is one of those things where at first it was kind of a big change to the community. You know, we're bringing a lot of people in, and in 2021, when we launched, gravel was still so new that a lot of folks in Whitefish were like, yeah, I'm just going to ride my mountain bike. Like, I don't really know about these gravel bikes. Like, those seem a little bit suspicious. But it quickly, everyone like kind of came around to the idea. And now we have this like massive gravel biking family. These clinics that we started around the event. The first year, I wanted to have a women and gender expansive clinic, and I had to beg like 8 people that I knew to come just so I could like have a real clinic. And then now we have an email list of over 200 people, over 200
Wow.
women and gender expansive folks that attend our clinics. So it just shows like how the community has embraced the event, and that I think it's the way that we looked at the event, the way we structured it, and how we thought about the impact on the community of how we were able to continue to get to this point. So I'm really, really proud of that, because I wanted it to be a net positive for the community. I didn't want it to get too big. I didn't want it to feel like it was all about profitability. I want it to be sort of, you know, something that everyone felt like they were part of, and that they almost had, you know, a say in how it was structured.
And tell me more about the Last Best Ride, because I know it's not just a one-day race that you show up and you race, which those are also great, but I know the Last Best Ride, it's much more than that.
Yeah. And so I want to talk a little bit about Ted and Laura King's event, Rooted Vermont, that it was so awesome. And they hosted this event in their home where they live in Richmond, Vermont for 3 years. When my last year of professional road racing, Laura King and I were new friends, and she started this event, and she sent me a text message and was like, you know, would you want to come out to Rooted? And I was sort of like, oh, that's right before the Colorado Classic. Like, I also don't have a gravel bike, and I don't know. And she was like, well, you can stay at her house and you can ride my gravel bike. And I was like, dang, that's super generous. And so I said yes, thinking at the time, like, oh my gosh, Laura King is like inviting me to stay at her house. Like, and she's telling Ted at the same time, like, oh my gosh, Jess Cerra is going to come stay with us. So we were both kind of fangirling, not knowing that we would become such good friends. But when I went to Rooted, Laura had created this weekend it wasn't just like you show up like a road race and everyone's sort of like sizing each other up, and teams are very exclusive. And it was super cool. There was like a Friday night hangout, and everyone was like eating creamies and drinking beer. And I was like, well, this is different. Like, you don't really get to drink beer and eat ice cream at road racing events. And then just like how they structured their expo and the inclusivity, and they weren't just talking about inclusivity and being welcoming. It was very clear that there was like dedicated space that people would show up and see other people who are like them, and not just feel like, you know, tokenized. So I admired that, and I was floored. I knew when I went to that event that I was ready to retire from road racing, and I wanted to pursue a gravel racing career at first, and that kind of led us into COVID. And me always saying to Sam, like, I really think that Whitefish is prime for an event like Rooted. Like, this is something where we create an entire experience, an entire weekend where you come, and our event, we have a happy hour on Friday night. So folks can come in We provide drinks, we provide some food. It's centralized around the fundraiser for the scholarship, but we normally have like a raffle, or 1 year, Sam, we raise money for Sam getting his hair cut into the Tiger King on stage. So we
That
try
was
to
hilarious. That
fun.
was classic. So good. Genius.
That was all Sam's idea. He had been saying all year, I want to do something fun where we cut my hair and we raise money. So that was hard to beat. And since I'm not willing to get a mullet or bleach my hair, we will never be able to top that. So we start with that, and that sort of sets the tone of like what the weekend is about. It is about making friends and bonding and feeling welcomed and meeting folks in the community. And I can tell you, like, everyone in Whitefish thoroughly looks forward to this evening, everyone that is involved in the event. And so it just sets the tone for the next day, which is our expo. And we have really cool shakeout rides, that are sponsors. So our title sponsor has always been SRAM. And I have to say that SRAM is one of those companies that is also doing the work and putting the resources. Like, they have supported me through my entire career, and they were the reason why the Women's Tour of California ever existed. They were kind of like the Zwift of that time,
Wow.
where they really invested into the women's side of the sport. But they're also very much involved in gravel when it comes to, equity and inclusion. And so they have been a huge, not only financial supporter, but just like a really big part of our event. And having sponsors like SRAM, Wahoo, our brand, Salt Stick and Bonk Breaker, Velocio, Envy, these are the brands. They show up and they make the expo and the weekend so special because they provide legitimacy, because
They are big names.
they're big name brands. And they also provide resources so we can host these cool things like a shakeout ride with a pizza party afterwards, or the women's gender expansive ride and brunch. And we have brunch at in the backyard of my friend's house at the end of the ride. So we're creating all these like little pockets of experiences. That my biggest goal is that coming to an event should not feel scary, and no one should feel alone or like they haven't made a friend by the time they're on the start line on Sunday. It's like, hey friend, like, cool, let's go out and like race really hard, or let's take pictures and eat as many snacks as we can. Like, I think that is the way forward for the general population to get involved in cycling. If you take out all the other barriers of having to buy all the equipment and travel, which we can talk about that too. But I think that right there is like how we continue to grow the grassroots events that everyone will want to be part of.
I agree. I think logistics of traveling and traveling with a bike can get in the way. But I think if you know that it's not going to be just one day race, and you get to spend the whole weekend and have all these activities, and I do believe you have the secret sauce, because you might meet someone in one of those one-day races, but when you have this experience, I'm just comparing to something similar because I did the migration race, which is a stage race, 4 days. But you get to have breakfast with everybody, you get to have dinner with everybody, and that brings so much more comfort when you are racing and you seeing people passing you, or you're passing people and a little, most of everybody, and you just make friends at the end of the day. Such a bonding experience. So you got a secret sauce there. Really cool. So during the event, you mentioned there's a women and gender inclusive ride as well.
Yeah, we like to do the shakeout rides to kind of give everybody a little bit of something that's special. We've had Marley Blonsky has come with All Bodies on Bikes the last 2 years and hosted a ride. And then we do the women and gender expansive ride has become so big that we've like split it up. But we all finish in the same spot. And so this year that was hosted by POC. And We had Lisa Congdon, who is an incredible artist and activist, and Serena Bishop Gordon, who is a professional cyclist. And they are part of a club called Special Blend Gravel. They helped lead that ride. And so like everyone kind of gets involved. And it's just super, super cool. It's like when you create your own event, you can do all the things that you wish other events had. And okay, I'm a privileged white woman. So for me to sit here and talk about ever feeling excluded is a little bit crappy, honestly. But I have felt that way in the world of cycling before, just being around a lot of men. And so the funny thing is that men want these experiences too. And they maybe just don't say it. So we also create it for them. There are other rides. It's not just about the opportunities for women, but it's like because a woman is planning it, I think that's why we get the experiences.
Might be fun for the guys too to cheer us up once in a while and be on the sidelines.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to ask something, escaped my mind that I was thinking. Oh, so people that would like to be part of it, but if they cannot make it to the race, is there any way to get involved, since this is a big cause that is close to many people's heart, which is education?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Sometimes we have some volunteer activities that can be done from afar. And we can also talk about how 2025 is going to change. But we do have a fundraising portal. And so the donations that come into that fundraising portal, 100% of that goes to the scholarships. None of that is used for operating the event. We have our own separate financial model that allows us to use registration funds to, for our operating capital. And then a portion of that goes to the scholarship, but everything that is fundraised, 100% of that goes into the scholarships. And because we've been so successful every year, in 4 years, we've given $102,500 of scholarships to 22 students from 5 different schools, which
that's very
exceeded
impactful.
my goals by it double. I just can't even believe that we've been able to do that. So we're giving out really substantial scholarships.
Congratulations. That's a great accomplishment. And it's wonderful to hear that in 2025, you're going to be back and continue the Last Best Ride, because not just for the fun, but also for all the lives that you're impacting. Can you share with us what are the plans for 2025?
Yeah. So when you and I talked on Instagram a month ago, I was telling you, you know what, we need to put the event on hold for next year. Running an event, it is not that I thought it was going to be easy, but it's a full-time job. And I have a full-time job that I love. And doing both has put my health in a place that I can't go on like this, despite all of the volunteers that absolutely work themselves into the ground. Besides, having a partner with Stella Hobbs this year, it's so hard. And I knew that I needed a break, and we were going to just focus on running the scholarship this year. But an opportunity came up. There's a Montana event promoter named Sean Radley, and he owns MTCX, and he puts on events in Missoula and the surrounding area, gravel events, cyclocross events, and has most recently hosted the last 2 years of cyclocross Pan Am championships. So he's a well-known promoter. He also is incredibly involved in his community and youth sports. And he has good footing in our area in Whitefish too. He's incredibly well respected. And when he approached Stella and me after the event, he has come up and volunteered for the last 2 years and run an aid station at the summit of the short course. So he's, taken the time out of his weekend just to come and volunteer, just to be part of it. And he had reached out to us saying, I would love to be a bigger part of this event. And at first I didn't take it seriously because I come from the mindset like no one can do it like me. And I realized that that was actually going to hurt our community, that, you know, yeah, maybe no one does it like me, but maybe he can do it better because this is what he dedicates his time to. He also said to me, Jess, you have done something revolutionary in Montana with underrepresented riders in the non-binary and para podiums. That statement right there made me know that I could trust him, because you either believe in those things and you want to put your time into supporting those things, or you don't. And that is something that, like, that's where it would stop with me, because that's such a huge part of our event. So we started having conversations, and MTCX and Sean Radley's crew, they're going to take over the Last Best Ride. He will own the event. He will be the race director, and all of the way we're structuring it is there will be no financial gain to me. It will all be donated back to the scholarship over the course of 3 years. And I'm only providing this level of detail because I think it's important for people to understand that running the Last Best Ride is expensive. It's an event that has a high value because we've been so successful. And yes, we could sell it to a larger organization and we could profit off of that and continue to grow the scholarship. But I don't think that's right for Whitefish. And I don't think a smaller organization, it's not the right fit for them either. So I really want this to be that gift to our community that continues. And this is a way to do that. And it works for everyone. And I feel really, really good about it. Our board of directors that oversees the nonprofit has been very supportive and involved, and Stella is on the board and has been very supportive and involved in the transfer. So the event will take place July 27th. It will still be a whole weekend of activities. The scholarship will still be attached and we'll still be fundraising through the event. The scholarship will actually host the happy hour this year. I will lead the Women and Gender Expansive Ride and Brunch with some other folks. And our registration, or rather the registration, will launch on November 22nd. So, yep, we're really excited.
Wonderful. I mean, I guess it can be a little emotional, like you said, it's your baby. You put so much work into it, and now you're not going to have the entire control.
Yeah.
But you will continue to benefit everyone that is involved. So,
yep,
that's good. That's really good news. I'm glad it's going to continue.
Yeah, and I hope that maybe we can get you over to Montana.
Oh my gosh, I would love to. I would love to go and participate. It would be amazing. I always want to go to Montana anyways. I drove cross country once before from New York to San Francisco, but I just made it like Utah and Wyoming. I stopped there a little bit, just needed to go a little bit more north to get to beautiful Montana. But that was my favorite part of the entire drive, that area. So I can imagine how much more beautiful Montana must be.
We have a special spot. We're 30 minutes away from Glacier Park, and yeah, it is expensive. That part it's a little frustrating, the cost of hotels and Airbnbs and whatnot in the summer, especially. If you plan ahead of time, getting there is much more affordable, but it's not lost on me that it is a little bit of a challenge to get there. So, for some people, it's more of a bucket list.
Is there like supply and demand because it's so secluded?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, the locals are feeling it too. Trust me, the cost of living there, and housing and
I'm
food.
sure there has been a few articles of a lot of celebrities buying out a lot of land, and it's a special place.
Celebrities, political figures.
Mm-hmm.
It is changing very significantly. And someone asked Sam and me the other day, like, why do you want to live in Montana? Like, it's a good question. It doesn't seem like it lines up with our values, but you need people like us living there and bringing more people into the state, if we want to continue to believe and live with those morals and values.
I agree. And this is where you grew up. You left Montana. You went, I think, to California, right? You did your pro cycling chapter, and then now you're back there for a reason. And it is a beautiful place. I just hope that all these politicians and celebrities that are buying everything keep the place sacred as is.
Yeah. It is a really interesting topic that we could probably do an entirely separate podcast on. I will say that there are some good souls out there. And there are some folks that get it, and hopefully everyone can just continue to be open to having those conversations. And as much as I am obviously very much, I don't want to say that I'm on one side. I do think there needs to be less of this, like, you're here or you're here. Not with the president, like definitely not with him, but I do think that, like, constructive conversations, and that specifically is, it's really important for relationships and communities. And so
I agree. You have to focus on the solution and not that side is wrong, my side is right, because then there's no solution. But let's talk, if you can talk a little bit about when you started making your own food when you were cycling, and that evolved into your own company when you created JoJé Bar, which is amazing. And I know you went through, I think during COVID, JoJé ended up being acquired by Alete. Can you talk us a little bit about this journey, and a little bit also about Alete? Because I know a lot of people might not know what Alete is, but they definitely know the products that Alete owns.
So I think most people sort of know the story of JoJé, and so we'll just fast forward to when we were acquired. Actually, it started in 2020. And we were lucky because we sort of rose above a lot of the disasters of COVID. We were able to keep our production going. We expanded nationwide into REI, and the bar category was having a lot of growth. And so it was a really good time to be acquired, because I was drowning and needed resources. And I just felt like, I felt like a crazy person. Any small business owner can resonate with that statement. You're just like, you can't even describe the things that come up. And also the growth, like we were going to need to choose to be acquired or to start fundraising for the next stage. So, at the time, the company was called Roadrunner. And since the name has changed to Alete Active Nutrition, and Alete is spelled ALETE, and it symbolizes all athletes, not just elite athletes. And it's a really cool company to work for. We have about 15 people on our team, and the idea was we were starting a platform of sports nutrition brands that was supposed to be sort of all-encompassing. And the first brand that had been acquired was Salt Stick, which is an electrolyte replenishment brand, that also has a sister brand named Vitasium, which is a brand like Salt Stick that focuses on electrolytes, but specifically for communities with chronic illness, such as POTS and dysautonomia. So those brands had existed already in the platform. And Salt Stick was founded by Jonathan Toker, who is a chemist, an elite runner and triathlete. So it was very much, it was like a science focused brand with a founder that was very involved like me. And then the next brand that was acquired after JoJé was Bonk Breaker. And I think that's a lot of folks also know Bonk Breaker, founded by Jason Wynn. And so also an athlete, very involved with the brand. So we had all these unique brand and founder stories embedded in.
Very relatable.
Exactly. And the intent was to bring on a couple other brands at first. And we wanted, we were looking at potentially like acquiring some sort of gel, maybe some sort of other supplement like a collagen or a protein. We were fairly open. And then the environment really started to change. And things, I think the ebb and flow of the backlash of COVID really made a lot of brands had to sit down and think like, what are our priorities and how has the consumer changed? Because consumers have changed, partially because of marketing, Amazon, social media is a big one. And so we had to think about that. The direction of the trends and how athletes are changing, how endurance fuel is changing, and then how the retail space has changed. And that led us to making some very hard decisions, but the right decisions, which was to sunset JoJé, which we did at the end of 2023, early 2024. And it wasn't because JoJé wasn't growing. It was growing, but it was a whole food energy bar that was expensive to make. And it was becoming more challenging as a business to put resources into that when we had other things that it made more sense to put resources into. So we kind of took a look at the entire portfolio and we cut out a variety of SKUs from everything and have decided to really focus on the things that are really working. And a lot of that is on the salt stick side with a product called the Fast Chews, which I'll talk about a little bit. And then on the Bonk Breaker side with the Energy Chews. So kind of in line with the trends of hydration and how people are using or what types of carbs people are using to fuel endurance now. Within all of these changes, my role has evolved and grown. And so, as you mentioned in the start of the call, I oversee all of the product development, our quality systems, and I still work within like the community of athletes, events, sort of as a spokesperson for the brand when I'm called upon. So
that sounds fun.
It is. It's, and I've learned so much. And I work with people who are incredibly experienced and have taught me how to just be really good at what I do. And so it's definitely allowed me a space to grow in my career and also still be really creative. So I think one of the things that I am good at is flavors. Like that's something that,
I want to be tasting stuff. How is it? How do you create these flavors? How does it go?
Yeah, it's like first it's about having the idea, right? So let's just use the Bonk Breaker OMG, Orange Mango Guava Energy as an example. So we had conversations. We have a Rainbow Blast Energy Chew flavor, and it's a top seller. And so we'd had conversations like, let's do a medley. And I was like, we got to go tropical. And I'm not going to call out the brand that made me think of this, but I was like, so-and-so brand is going to go tropical if we don't do it. And I was like, we need to go tropical. And Jason said, well, what about POG, pineapple, orange, guava? And I was like, yeah, that could be cool. And then all of a sudden one day he was like, wait a minute, what about orange mango guava? And it could be OMG. And we were like, that's
brilliant.
It. Yeah. That's Bonk Breaker. That's it. And so then it's just about me working with the production facility, developing the flavors and then sampling, tasting, making modifications, making sure that it fits the nutritionals, working with the marketing team to develop the artwork that we think represents this, and then how we launch something like that. So it's super fun. And that's sort of like, that's the process for development with anything. And it works differently across food and supplements somewhat, but you basically, you start with a product brief and you start with a spec sheet, and then those are all the technical, boring details that you have to build the flavor profiles and the product around. But so it's really, really fun and exciting. And on the salt stick side, I think most people know that brand is the salt capsule that, just classic preload, or
I think you have do you swallow or you can chew it, or both? Ooh, I don't know what happened.
For those of you who can't see, there's balloons flying around our screen. You swallow the capsules, but what we have on the salt stick side that is so unique is our fast chews product. And unlike a gummy energy chew, it is a hard tablet chew that is like a sweet tart. And so you chew it and it absorbs through the lining in your mouth directly into your bloodstream, versus having to swallow it in the 20 minutes that it takes to go through your gut. And then you can't absorb everything that is digested and absorbed through your gut. So you lose some of the potency. These fast chews are really unique. Spoiler alert, we have just completed some clinical research on this product, and we're very excited to share more about those findings, to be able to really back up our claim that not only this does absorb through the lining in your mouth, but it works faster. So if you've ever taken one, if you've ever been cramping, the story we hear at every expo, people come running up, oh my gosh, I was in a running race, or I was at this cycling event and someone gave me one of these because I was standing on the side of the road cramping. And within minutes, I wasn't cramping anymore. So it is a very effective product. And it also tastes good. So
yes,
you're like motivated.
I can attest to that. Noah from Alete sent me a few samples, and oh my gosh, it's so good. So good. You want to eat like candy, but it really does hit you when you need it. When you take it in and you feel your energy levels change, or if you're cramping, that also goes away. It really works. So amazing job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We're hoping to have a little bit of reception outside of the athlete world into the sort of everyday health consumer, where, no mixing, no waiting, no mess, no water bottles. You just have your tablets with you and you can pop them for quick sort of like microdosing hydration throughout the day.
Very cool. So I guess when you guys all got together and made, some decisions that were tough but made sense, like sunsetting JoJé and streamlining everything, what else is there on the bar space, since there's no more JoJé? I know there's bonk breakers, and you have the oh my god flavors, and you have the fast chewies. You're still going to have the capsules.
We'll still have the capsules. Yep.
Okay.
So we have, just to kind of break down the quick product line, and I won't touch on Vitassium as much, but for Salt Stick, we have 8 flavors of the fast chews. And right now we are just working on the big project that we've just finished as we're launching into grocery for the first time. Is we have updated all of the flavors with natural colors and an embossment. So we'll have a water droplet. So we've increased the flavor appeal a little bit. On the capsule side, we have both the traditional capsule and then we have a caffeine capsule. And all of our products are Informed Choice certified. So they're random batch tested. The caffeine capsule is Informed Sport certified. So every batch is third-party tested. So that's a unique feature of those products. On the bonk breaker side, we have the Energy Chew line, which like I mentioned, has been growing, and we have 3 flavors on that line that are just solo flavors, 2 that are mixed, and then this year we launched a limited edition sour blue raspberry, which was our first ever sour coated chew, and it was so popular. We're
I
bringing it
love
back
sour.
on Monday. It's like going to be a full-time SKU.
Cool. I want to
So
try it.
they're addictive. We'll have to get you some. We're
I won't say no to that.
Yeah. And then the Bonk Breaker line, Bonk Breaker has always been known for the original peanut butter and jelly, which was like a sandwich. And so we've taken that line, and everything now is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So we have the original strawberry and peanut butter and jelly and energy and protein, plant-based protein. And then we have 2 additional plant-based protein that have an apple cinnamon jelly, and the other one is a salted caramel that's actually made from apples.
Oh my
So
gosh. You're getting me
same
hungry.
concept, real food, soft, delicious. I can eat tens of thousands of those. It's like, whoever gets sick of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
No
You
one.
just don't get sick of that flavor combo.
So
So
good.
yeah.
Amazing. So excited to have this new line. And this is, I guess it's a constant work, to look into what are the trends, what is the new technology in nutrition, and coming up with new products. So I wish you all the success. And, I love all the Alete products, so I'm a big fan.
Yeah, you've been a great ambassador. You take the most killer photos.
Oh, that's my husband's work.
Yeah, your husband.
I'm so lucky. I'm just
So
there.
good.
Thank you. And speaking about cycling, can we talk about your life after being a pro? How do you feel you fit into the cycling world? What it means to you to be on the other side of things now?
Yeah. It's hard not to go through that without having sort of an identity crisis. The way that I operate as a person is I start projects before I ever think through things and get scared. That is like my biggest gift and also my biggest curse, where I'm like, I'm not scared. I'm just like, project, go for it. And then I'm like, ooh, maybe I should have charted this out a little bit more. And then I just figure out a way how to get it done. And so I guess I sort of I approached retirement thinking that I would go into gravel racing. And conceptually, the timing of it was perfect. If I had truly wanted to focus on that and focus on fitness and racing, I probably could have had a very successful privateer career. And I'd be lying if there aren't moments where I don't watch the fast women in the Lifetime Grand Prix and the UCI series. And I don't think what if? But I also feel like in some ways I called my retirement an evolvement. And I feel like I was lucky that it happened to be sort of a graceful transition, where I just realized that I think you can't force how this happens, because if you had asked me, even 5 years ago, I couldn't imagine not focusing on training and being fast and thinking that my career and being a mentor in the cycling world is what would fill my cup up. It somehow you just get to that point, I think. And I got there, and I just sort of headfirst dove into the other side, which is sort of like building up the communities and providing the experiences and the mentorship versus focusing more on myself. I remember seeing friends retire from professional road racing and taking on these roles, and I just I couldn't understand it. I was like, I will always be fast. I could be racing the tour when I'm 80, or who knows? But it just sort of happens naturally. And it's funny how the seasons of life do that to you. And you always as you mature, I feel like you're always talking to your younger self. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure myself in 10 years from now will be talking to me about this, what I'm doing. So it is very interesting. And you also get a chance to take a look at like road racing. I wish for my husband's sake had more, ground to stand on. And I wish that it could grow more. And sometimes I feel like, wow, maybe I should have put more of my resources in to road racing where I came from, because there is not a lot for American riders. There's not a lot for women's development. But it's just not like, it doesn't fit where my passion is and, where it makes sense for me right now. So, I think no matter what, if you're involved and you're getting butts on bikes, right? Like they say, like you're doing good work. But when you've raced at a very high level and you know what it's like to be there, I think there's always this little piece of your brain, like you put me in a race scenario and I can't turn it off. I want to. I just can't be that person when I'm on a bike. And so you have to very strategically plan like what your goals are and what you're doing, which has led me to really just like not racing a lot anymore, because I learned I was actually in the first few years still able to pull out like some pretty okay results. But what it would do to me when I would get back to like work on a Monday was I would be really, really tired. Like working the expo all weekend at Unbound and then doing the 200 and getting 10th. That took me like a month to recover from.
I believe you. It is a lot. It is a lot. And I understand the mindset that you were 110% in as a pro cyclist and being out of it. Obviously, you're going to have these thoughts of what if. But like I said, you have to come back to where you are today and not think with the mindset of the pro cyclist. But I guess that's just a work that we have to do on our own, and it takes time. And you are still in the scene. I mean, you're a big staple in the cycling community, and look at all the amazing things you're doing.
I hope so. I feel like I'm hesitant to say this because I don't want it to come off the wrong way, but I feel like there's also a point where you get to an age when you're a privateer, when you're racing on the road, because it's harder. There's not as many resources. There's no guaranteed salary. I just got to a point where I always felt like I was asking so much from so many people. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I get like, oh, well, it's really fun to get asked to invest. Like, I love doing it. I love hosting people at our house. I love passing on equipment and doing those things. But when you're on the side where you're always asking for things, like I think I just also got to an age where I had a really good career opportunity, and I'm so proud that I chose to focus my energy there. And it feels really good to be stable in that aspect, because that's something that like you're kind of like floating along when you're racing full time. If you're sort of like someone that you're not relying on your family or something like me. And it can be a little scary, like you're one crash away from disaster or something, right?
Oh my gosh, that's so nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, for me it was the timing of it, and I just feel incredibly grateful that I came into cycling through Xterra off-road triathlon, and I rode that wave into road racing. Rode the wave of like when Evie Stevens and Mara Abbott, and road racing was huge in the US. The women's fields would be 150 deep, had opportunities to race in Europe and other countries. And then as that started, that tide started to pull out, I surfed the wave up into the gravel world. And I'm like, I don't know how that timing has worked out for me so well. But I feel it's not lost on me. that.
No, I feel like everything you touch is gold. You start with Xterra, and then, you went also, like you said, super successful in road cycling. Meanwhile, you're making your own bars, and that takes off also on its own journey. And look at where you are now. It's amazing. And now your husband is a pro cyclist.
Yeah.
So is he on the road, or is he back home now for the off season? How is that working? Because I know he's traveling a lot. We even talked about you guys coming here and visit us in Girona, since he was so close by in Mallorca.
Yeah. So actually, there's been a few updates with that. So Sam, he races for Project Echelon, which is an American continental team. And they are also a nonprofit, and they educate, equip, and inspire veterans. They have a really cool organization of mentorship for veterans to get involved in physical activity, cycling, and sport to improve mental health. And it's an incredible program. And Sam is the type of person where he doesn't like everything to be spun around cycling. He doesn't perform well in that environment when he feels like it's all about himself. And so for him to be on a team that focuses more than just on the riders has been a really positive experience for him. They are also a team that has grown so much and is able to provide opportunities for international racing that is second to none. Like, there just aren't other teams in America doing this. And Sam raced all over last year. He was in Mallorca, Valencia, France, Greece. He went back to Europe, went to Norway. He went to Portugal. He was all over the place. So this year, after
and in a lot of podiums, I saw that.
Yeah, he'll be hard on himself. He writes for the Escape Collective, and if you haven't read his column, The Rookie Report, he's an incredibly talented and entertaining writer. And I know I'm his wife, so I'm biased, but truly, he really does have a talent for this. He makes it sound like he's pack fodder, which is a lot of the times for American riders. But he's had some great results over there too. Like, he won a KOM jersey.
Wow.
He, is opportunistic. Their team is very aggressive and opportunistic about riding in breaks and getting TV time. And when you're ahead of the race, sometimes, those opportunities come. So, anyway, he is doing a similar schedule this year and understanding a little bit better with his coach how to prepare for that demand, because it is totally different than racing American races. And specifically when you've been focused on crit racing, which has its own challenges and is totally legitimate in its own way, it just is not the same as these massive stage races in Europe. So he's shifting his focus, and we are actually in California right now, spending 2 months here for his training. And then his team, they rented a house in Malaga. So they will be in Malaga from the middle of January till the end of March. And I'll go over once and visit with our little group that goes over. Laura and Ted are coming, and a couple of my friends from Whitefish are actually coming out. So
oh, how nice. Yeah, Malaga should be one of the few places that it's warm around mid-January.
I know. Malaga, and then do you say it Calp or Calpe?
I don't know.
Calpe,
I think.
He's going to drive up to Calpe. We rented a house in Calpe from when we're coming at the end of February.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you feel like driving north and coming to Girona, the offer still stands. You guys are welcome here.
I wish my work schedule could line up to remote working from Girona for a month.
Sounds good. Jess, I really want to thank you for your time. I love spending time with you. I hope we can meet in person someday soon.
Yeah, whether it's me in Girona or you in Whitefish, we got to make it happen. We need to get out on the bike together, get the dogs together.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Dogs want to hang out too.
Wonderful. Well, have a wonderful time. Enjoy California.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all for today's episode. I want to thank the listeners for tuning in. Your support means everything. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends.